Hello, today we have Pete O'Hearn, Chairman, Founder, and CEO of FibroBiologics, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker FBLG. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
FibroBiologics, a clinical stage biotech addressing chronic diseases with large unmet needs. Most investors probably don't realize just how big the chronic disease market is, Pete. Can you give us a sense of the scale of the medical problems FibroBiologics is targeting?
Sure. We look at big pharma since the 1960s. They've never really cured a chronic disease, and trillions of dollars spent on that. We look at chronic diseases as a planet-sized market. The diabetes alone is over 537 million people globally, which is more than the populations of U.S. and Brazil combined. Um, They affect up to 25% of the diabetic patients, and they're responsible for 80% of the non-traumatic lower limb amputations. That's tens of billions of dollars. The broader chronic wound space is a 20 to $30 billion global market, and it grows every year with the aging population. So this is a really unmet market with really no good solution.
Let's talk about diabetic foot ulcers, which is your lead program. It actually is a condition that can lead to amputations and even death. What makes your treatment different from what's available out there today?
Well, I will start with more time on target. The current treatments are dressings, debridement. There is a leading biologic that's the number one in the market. We outperform that in the lab. We heal in 50% of the time of that existing product. We put on the wound site spheroids. Those are droplets of fibroblast cells, up to 3,000 per droplet, and they dissolve into the wound in a very predictable biologic time release. And what that gives us is more time on target for those to release their growth factors and cytokines into that wound to create that healing environment. And we've seen fantastic results in the lab, and we're excited to start our human trials.
Tell me more about the platform approach of fibrobiologics. It's really the thing that stands out to me about your company. Now, how does your technology allow you to go after multiple diseases with that one core system?
It's a great question. There's two cells in the human body you can use to regenerate tissue and cure chronic disease. There's a stem cell, which everybody's heard about, and there's a fibroblast, which almost nobody's heard about. The irony is that fibroblasts outnumber stem cells 5,000 to 1. We have found them to be have more potency, higher therapeutic value than stem cells. They're easier to harvest than stem cells. You can take a small dermal punch, and from that, you can virtually grow the entire human body. They are a more robust cell. Stem cells are inherently unstable, and fibroblasts are very stable. They are fully differentiated. So stem cells want to be anything other than a stem cell. Fibroblasts know that they're fibroblasts. They can become other cells, but you have to talk them into it. And the irony of ironies is the reason we know about stem cells is because in 2012, Dr. Yamanaka from Japan won the Nobel Prize for the first induced pluripotent stem cell. That is to take one cell source and turn it into another cell. The irony of ironies is that he used a fibroblast to create that stem cell. So our cell source is literally responsible for the entire stem cell revolution.
Pete, your technology has been described as more scalable and more cost-effective than traditional cell therapy. What does that mean for your patients and, of course, for investors?
Well, first of all, in comparing us to stem cells, they are an unstable platform, as I mentioned before. They're very difficult to work with, very costly. I think there's one or two stem cell products that are available. They are extraordinarily expensive. Fibroblasts being easier to harvest, easier to grow, a much more stable platform. They will always be more effective than stem cells, and they will always be less expensive than stem cells. So they will carry with them a much higher margin at lower cost to the system.
You've got a strong leadership team. It includes a world-class scientific advisory board. Tell us about the key players on your team.
Well, it starts with the head of the team is Hamid Koja, our chief scientific officer. Hamid is the world's foremost expert in the therapeutic use of fibroblasts. We actually presented last week to a professor a medical school professor who teaches dermatology, which is essentially what fibroblasts are. At the end of the presentation, he said, I had no idea. I teach fibroblasts every day, and I had no idea that they had a therapeutic value. So Hamid leads the world in that expertise. And on our scientific advisory board, we have really leaders in stem cells, because fibroblast leaders didn't exist out there. But these are world leaders in stem cells who did their research. They looked at what we were doing with fibroblasts and said they wanted to be a part of this. So we are really excited about the breadth and depth of our scientific advisory board.
Looking ahead 12 to 18 months, what are some key milestones that investors should be watching out for?
So in Q3 and 4, you'll be looking for some interim result data from our diabetic foot ulcer. We're doing site visits today. In fact, Hamid is in Australia doing site visits. So you'll see some interim results from that. You'll see top line results either towards the end of the year or the beginning of 26. So it all begins really right now, and that's a short endpoint study, 12 weeks. Our endpoint we will be releasing 6-week interim data. So you'll see something before the end of the year on that.
Final question, Pete. What is the essential value proposition? Why should an investor take an interest in FibroBiologics right now?
Well, again, we are a platform technology. We have multiple verticals. We have diabetic foot ulcers. We have orthopedics. We have degenerative disc disease. We do cancer, multiple sclerosis. We have a really exciting area of psoriasis that's beginning, and an extension of human life program through our repair of the thymic function. The thymus gland teaches the immune system. When you get into your 70s, it stops working. We've shown that we can create an organoid, a collection of fibroblast cells, and inject those under the skin, and they release and develop T cells for the body. We think that if that is successful, we can extend human life another 10 or 15 years. That's all wrapped up in more intellectual property in fibroblasts than the rest of the world combined. We have over 275 patents in this space. We are by far the world leader.
It's a great story, Pete. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.